Welcome back to the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce here, joined by the famous Seth Wright. I think you are famous. I've heard your name on the podcast, but I also heard your name quite a bit when I got to the mission.
Okay.
So maybe we'll find out why.
Yeah.
But go ahead and start us out with how you ended up in Scotland.
All right. Thank you very much, Jack. So I got graduated high school in 2001. And the plan was always to go on a mission. And I went to Springville High School, and there's actually 3 of us from Springville High School that ended up in Scotland at about the same time. So that was kind of interesting. But I always hoped to not go to a Spanish-speaking mission like so many people in Utah County did. So I intentionally didn't take Spanish in school, which I regret terribly now. It would be so helpful to learn Spanish, to know Spanish. I don't regret going to Scotland. I just regret not learning Spanish. And so I'm the oldest of 4 boys. So as soon as I could, I put in my papers to serve a mission. And not very long after me putting in my papers, did the 9/11 attack happen in New York and Washington, D.C. And I got my call about 2 weeks after that. And so it was a little bit of like a tense kind of situation, because I was like, do I go on a mission or do I go fight a war? I don't know. It was kind of a hard decision. I'm sure many people in my era, I guess our era, probably had a similar thought, like what do we do? And so I got my call to Scotland, and I remember opening the papers and reading it and being like, you are hereby called to serve in the Scotland Edinburgh Mission. And I was like, cool. I don't even know where that is. And the thing I was really excited about was not serving or not going to the Provo MTC. That's the first thing that stood out to me, because I
didn't have to just go up the road. Got to
exactly.
Go across.
I got to go more than 6 miles away from my house. And so, and not that I wouldn't have loved to see my grandma. My grandma worked at the Provo Temple, and she was there every single day it was open, and that would have been fantastic to see my grandma. But it's just nice to like get on a plane and go, you know?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because like I said, so many people from Utah County were going to Southern or Central America, which is great, or Spanish speaking inside the United States. Besides the 2 other guys that I graduated with that came to Europe or to Scotland. But many people weren't in Scotland, so it was kind of cool to be like one of the outliers going to Europe.
Yeah. Who were the other 2 who headed over there?
Caleb Lovelace and Jeff Croshaw.
Okay.
They both came out about 5 or 6 months after me. I think they may have had spring or summer birthdays. I was born in the fall, so I went pretty quick after graduating. Well, not really. I got there in January. I remember getting my call, and it took nearly the entire 4 months to get my passport and visa approved, which I think is more common now again, but at that time it was pretty stressful.
Yeah. So January of 2002 is when you started.
Yeah, I flew out on the 8th of January. I started the 9th of January.
Okay.
That was the first time I'd ever been on an airplane. I was going to the mission.
All right. Okay, so skip ahead now. We'll talk about what you've been up to since you got back. So
Okay.
Did you come back to Utah?
Yeah. My apologies. I came back to Utah in I guess it would have been end of January of 2004. My brother, who's 2 years younger than me, left on his mission, I think in March of 2004. And he went to San Francisco. And he had this thing in his possession. He said, "Hey, Seth, I want you to have this because I'm not going to use it for a while." And I was like, "Okay, what is it?" And it was a little cell phone, right? And it was like, I didn't know. I was like, "Okay, whatever, dude, that's fine." And I turned out to be this. I thought was so cool because it had a mirror on the front, right? It was like this cell phone with this little old Nokia thing with a mirror, and I was like, "Wow, I have a phone!" Like it was just such a new thing. And now it's like my son has been asking for a phone since he was 10. He's 12 now, but like not even 10, probably actually more like 8. I'm like, I didn't even know what these things were until I was 21, right? Like, anyways, I came home. The first summer I was home, I went to work up in Alaska with a buddy of mine. He served his mission in Alaska, and he and I went up there and worked on not fishing. That's the wrong thing. Worked on tour boats, took people out to see glaciers and all the wildlife.
Oh, cool.
Saw tons of any kind of whale. It was amazing. Went deep sea kayaking with a pod of orcas within a kayak or within an oar's reach of the kayak, and that was pretty rad.
That's awesome.
It's really fun. And then my uncle worked at a girls' treatment center for girls with like behavioral issues as a recreation therapist. And when I got back from Alaska, he said, "Hey, Seth, you want to work with me at this place? We take these girls from around the country. They're all teenagers, and we get them away from their families, and we teach them new ways to live their life in healthy ways." And I said, "Sure, why not?" So I got a job working in a girls' treatment center, and I also worked at the Utah State Hospital in Provo, and I worked on the grounds crew there. So I did a couple jobs for a little bit, and then I got my associate's degree from Utah Valley University. And this whole time I'd been working in mental health. Besides the job up in Alaska, I've been just doing mental health care, and it really like resonated with me. And so that's been a passion of mine ever since I got home. Really, yeah. minus the short-term summer up in Alaska, like I just have done behavioral health stuff. And it was pretty fun at the girls' treatment center. I remember I was one of there could only be one male working there at a time. So we had a staff of 4 at a time for an 8-hour shift, and only one guy, just because it was 16 girls. And as a male staff, you couldn't be in a room with a girl by yourself. There had to be at least one other female staff there. So there are so many things that as a male I couldn't do. So it was an interesting experience to be like in a mental health facility with completely outnumbered male to female ratio, right?
Yeah.
And so one day this lady, this girl, yeah, she was a girl. She came in to interview for a job, and I was one of the supervisors, and I said, I interviewed her, and I was like, "Yeah, you seem great, whatever, but my shift is Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings, or from 3 to 11." And she couldn't work that shift, and so she got hired by my friend who was working the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday shifts. And after, I didn't think much about it. I think that was probably like November-ish, October, November of maybe 2006. And then in the spring, I ran into her at a training, and I was like, "Oh, this girl's kind of cute," right? And so then I ended up asking this girl out, and we dated for a little bit. She was going to school at BYU to do recreation therapy, and she had taken an internship in Baltimore, and so we dated for the rest of the spring semester. So probably like March through the end of April. She drove to Baltimore, and anyways, we ended up getting married in October that year. It was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. We lived in Provo for about a year. We bought a house in Springville. After I got my associates at UVU, I transferred up to the University of Utah, and I got my bachelor's degree up there as a recreation therapist as well. And we had our first child in January of 2011, a little boy named Declan. And when Declan was about 1, we moved from Springville to Salt Lake. So we'd had our house in Springville for about 4 years, three and a half years. And just the drive from me, driving from Springville to Salt Lake City every single day, just got tiring.
Yeah.
I graduated from the U of U in 2009, and I got a job immediately at a hospital called University Neuropsychiatric Institute. It's now called the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, but it's the University of Utah Psychiatric Hospital. And the whole time I had been working behavioral health, whether it was at the treatment center or state hospital, or I ended up going to a different treatment center for girls with on the autism spectrum, and that one was really interesting. And everywhere I've gone has been like just behavioral health. But once I went to uni, I stayed there for about almost 7 years. And that was the majority of the time I've been home from my mission, was like working as a recreation therapist. So I was at uni from 2009 till 2016. Had my second child in September of 2013. Her name is Isla, and both my kids have names from Scotland.
Yeah.
Declan and Isla, and they both get butchered and mispronounced all the time. Declan gets called Declan all the time. I'm not sure why. There's no hyphen in there, no extra capitalization, but either way.
I thought people would get that one.
What's that?
I thought people would get that one.
I know. It's a little bit odd. And then Isla always gets called Isla, or Isla. She's in a Spanish immersion, and so all of her teachers just call her Isla. And I think she likes that because her name, translates well in Spanish as it does in Scotland. And then in the end of 2015, my wife Marissa and I separated. We got divorced in 2017. Officially divorced. We were separated for about 16 months or something before the divorce became final. We tried a lot to reconcile a lot of things, but it just was not in the cards for us. And so I moved back home with my parents for about 4 months in the process of us separating. And that was not fun. It's not great. So don't recommend, but it was a good option to have. And then I got an apartment in Salt Lake in Holiday. That was about 2 miles from where she and I lived. And so it worked out well that I could still see my kids often and go to all their school stuff. And I left working at uni during the separation because she and I both worked there together, and it became very awkward. And I didn't want the department, since we have the same degree, we worked with the same populations. I didn't want people being like, gossiping and he said, she said, and I want to be friends with you, but I want to be friends with her. Because it's like, I'm out.
Just avoid all that.
Yeah. Yep. So I got a job doing nothing behavioral health. This was the first time in a while. And I became just like a regular old unit clerk on labor and delivery at the U of U. And I worked there for about 6 years at the main hospital. And so if anybody listening to this had a baby at the University of Utah between the time of, October 2016 to July 2022, I probably saw you. So, it was an interesting job. I did not like it for the most part. It was just a good job that had great insurance. Mostly because I had to work graveyards in order to have any kind of meaningful interaction with my kids.
Yeah.
And that's been difficult. So I always worked as a recreation therapist on the side because I wanted to keep my license active. And so I've worked in substance abuse treatment centers. I've worked in crisis centers for women and children. And then most recently worked as a recreation therapist at St. Mark's Hospital. And that one's interesting because it's just acute care for those who have recently attempted suicide. And then they get picked up by the police or somebody else, fortunately, and they come to me. And it's really nice. It's a really hard job, but it's a really rewarding job.
Yeah.
I got remarried in about, almost exactly 2 years ago. My new wife wanted to be creative, and so she picked the date of 4-3-2-1, so I don't have to forget.
There you go.
So that worked out really well. We got married, civilly married on 4-3-2-1, and then we got married in the temple the next year on 2-22-22. So we just celebrated
That's
a
pretty
year.
cool.
Yeah. So it makes it easy to remember, but also confusing because my brain doesn't remember as well. But my wife now she's a nurse. She worked on labor and delivery as well. She still does. We probably known each other for 3 years before I decided it was okay to start dating again. I mean, I've been separated from my wife since 2015, my ex-wife. And I didn't date anybody for probably 5 years. No, that's not right. 4 years. Just, I don't know, just didn't feel like it was something I wanted to do. And so, plus I was really worried how my kids would take it. And I always have put them first. And
yeah,
it's been nice. So my wife is a primary worker currently. I'm back in school. I'm now at Weber State. I'm getting my master's in social work. And because the limitation with my bachelor's degree with recreation therapy is I can't do individual therapy. I can't do one-on-one sessions. I can only do group. And I don't mind group. Groups are fun. It's kind of scary at first to be the one person and 16 people looking at you for instruction, and they're anything from suicidal to homicidal to extremely depressed to whatever, anything in between. And I just really like the individual work. I really want to get back to working with teenagers and help curb some terrible behaviors before it becomes permanent behaviors.
Yeah, that's great, man.
My kids are 12 and 9. My son just got ordained to the priesthood in January. His birthday is in January, so he missed the early sliding in as an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So he's been loving every second of passing the sacrament. He goes between the ward with me and the ward with his mom. His mom, so my ex-wife and I, we live less than 1 mile apart. We're both in South Salt Lake, just opposite sides of 7th East. And so we are very close to each other, and that works out well because we can coordinate with each other, pickups and drop-offs and stuff with the kids' schedules really well. And my son's very nerdy. Very nerdy. He wants to play sports. He loves football. And we're big Utah Utes fans. And I'm going to support him till he just decides that it's not for him.
Good job, Dad.
Yeah. He has these dreams of being a wide receiver, being like Britton Covey. I don't know if you know him, who was Utah Utes wide receiver. He was
Zach should be here. He'd know.
Yeah.
We're on opposite sides of that, so.
That's fine. His dad or his grandpa was Stephen R. Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective, whatever.
Yeah.
And anyways, so he's just this scrawny white dude that plays on the Philadelphia Eagles, and my son's like, I can be like him. I'm like, you can.
Go for it, bro.
You can do it. He's like, but I also want to invent all these things. And he's just in like every STEM club that exists at his junior high.
Awesome.
I'm like, we will keep you with that. And then my daughter is a fantastic little artist, and that's all she cares about is art and tumbling. And I will support those two things.
And she's in Spanish immersion. So that's one reason you should have learned Spanish, right?
Right. Both my kids are. And my son he's so good at Spanish, and their stepmom is fluent in Spanish. And so they talk in Spanish all the time at home. And I'm like, I know every seventh word.
I found when I took Spanish after I got home from my mission at community college, just a couple of semesters, and I found that I was learning Spanish through Scottish. Like,
oh, really?
I guess you learn your third language through your second language. So I was translating, things in my mind were like, I didn't ken. Okay.
That's fun.
All right, man. It's been a busy journey for you, and you're still on it. So
it has. I would say to anybody, like, if you're thinking about grad school, you should do it. Like, I thought I'd be the oldest person in my class. I just turned 40, and I'm not. I'm the oldest guy. I mean, there's only 2 guys in there. There's 22 people, and I'm older than a couple of my professors, but like, it's kind of cool to be in there with a bunch of like moms who have finally decided like their kids are old enough they can go back to school and do something that they want to do. So it's pretty fun to like step out and exercise a different part of your brain again.
Yeah. I thought grad school was way better than undergrad too. I went back after having my kids, and it's nice being there with people who want to be there, and they all have experience. So they're bringing that to the discussions. It's good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Seth. So take us back now. January 2022 or 2002. Sorry.
Yeah.
20 years ago. And you can start the MTC, or you start when you got to Scotland. But tell us where you were at, who you were serving with, and just memories you had along the way.
Okay, sounds great. When I got to England, we flew into Manchester, and we took I think it was a bus. I don't remember. The bus probably to the Preston MTC. And I'm now learning that the Preston MTC teaches languages. I didn't know that. Back when we were there, it was just English.
Just English. Even foreign speakers just thrown in.
Exactly. And so I had an English companion. He was from south of London, and he was serving in Manchester. And so right away, I got thrown into this totally new language, right? Because he was pretty rich. He was definitely more affluent Londoner than, and so his accent was very refined as opposed to some of the other London accents I've heard. But we at the MTC, it was during their like winter cleaning time, so we got to go into the temple. I think just the last week I was there. So the first 2-ish weeks there was nothing; it was closed for cleaning, and then right before we got shipped up to Scotland, we got to do a quick session, and got to see the Preston Temple inside once, and that was fantastic. Once I got to Scotland, I don't remember how many people were in my MTC class that went up there. I don't recall, but my first area was in Edinburgh, and my companion was Elder Dawson. He was on his last transfer, and so he was finishing up his mission, and I was just beginning mine. He was from Brazil, but while he was serving in Scotland, his mom moved to Aberdeen, and so
oh wow,
yeah, so he went home from his mission to Aberdeen. So and he had spent most of his mission in Aberdeen area, like up in Peterhead and a couple of other, and I think Orkney as well. Anyways, So we were in Edinburgh, we had the Wester Hales section of the city. So I think that's the bottom, like the southeast, I think. Can't recall exactly. I just know we had a triangle section. You know, the
Take your
sisters.
word for it. I never served in Edinburgh, so.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
It was nice because we had the mission home right there, right? And we got to go to the chapel right by the mission home and got to see President and Sister Wilkinson pretty frequently. And I loved it. It was Scotland. I mean, my introduction to Scotland was pretty terrible. I'll say that. But it was pretty interesting to like go from England, where I didn't understand my companion very well or any of the teachers, and then go to Scotland and not have any clue what was being said at any point of the time.
Yep.
And especially serving in some of the poorer areas, and the accent or the dialect was even more thick and much more unique verbiage and words. And so I remember one night, March 1st, 2002, my companion and I were finishing up knocking some doors on Chapping, right? And in this section of Edinburgh called Broomhouse. And we'd finished the row. It was like a tenement row. And I finished that row, and we had to go back out the same way we came in to get to the bus stop. And it was probably like 8:30, 8:40 at night. You know, we had to be in by 9:30. And we finished at this row, and nobody answered the door, right? No, not a single person talked to us. And it was cold because it was March. And I remember having this feeling in my gut. And I told my companion, I was like, hey, Dawson, we should walk around the backside of these flats. Like we should not go along the street. And he was like, no. He's like, right, don't do it. Like that's a bad idea. So I was like, okay. I mean, you're the senior companion. You know what's best. So and like looking at it is like walking down a dark alleyway with like no lights and a bunch of broken glass and only one way in and one way out, right?
Yeah.
So like my brain's telling me to do that was like all along. I'm like, don't say yes, dude. Don't say yes because I don't want to do this. So he's like, no, we'll just get to the bus stop. We'll just ride the bus home and we'll start tomorrow. So we get out, we start walking down the street, and I see like three teenagers on a one with a bike and two next to him. And I was like, oh, I should keep my eye on these two or on these guys. And then the next thing I know, I'm like picking myself up off the ground. And I was like, that was weird, right? And I look, and my companion, Elder Dawson's like 10 feet, 8 feet in front of me on the ground, being kicked. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? You know? And so I grab him, I pull him up. And by this point, there was more than three. There was probably about 10 people, plus a couple of parents that were sitting there just watching the Americans, right? The Yanks get beat up. And so we got pinned between a little fence, one of those little like wooden fences that go up to about mid thigh, and just kicked and are sworn at and spit on and whatever. And I was like, just let us go. We're just going to go to the bus stop. Just let us go, whatever. And, you know, and they were swearing at us, and the moms were swearing at us, and kids were just yelling stuff, and they were throwing rocks at us as we were walking down the street. And I remember reaching in my pocket and grabbing my handkerchief because I was like, you know, my nose was running. It's March, it's cold. And we get under, and so I put my handkerchief up to my nose, and I was like, man, that is a lot of snot, man. That is a lot of snot. And we get underneath this like dingy yellow street lamp that you can barely see a single thing in. And I see it, and it's like bright red blood.
Oh, man.
And at that point, I lost my like ability to walk, right? I all of a sudden like trauma hit in. I had like the first trauma response, right? Where you're like adrenaline kicks in, and then afterwards the trauma set in. So we walk into somebody's garden. We open the gate, we walk into their garden, and Dawson's like, I'm going to knock on his door, and we're going to call for a taxi to pick us up because I don't think you should keep going. So then I see this guy in his front room, like he sees us on his porch, and he's not answering the door. And I was like, nobody answers the door for us, dude. Like he's not going to answer the door. And the teenagers and the parents were waiting for us on the other side of the gate. Right? And so I'm like, if he doesn't open the door, then something's going to happen. And if he does open the door, then something's probably going to happen to him. So eventually he opens the door, and he says, what can we do? What can I do for you? And my companion's like, hey, can I use your phone? I just need to call a taxi. My friend's hurt. And so the guy looks at me and he's like, oi. He's like, come in. I was like, no, because I'll get blood all over your house. Like, I don't want to drip blood all over your house. And he's like, okay. And, he gives me a bucket. And so I just sit on his porch, bleeding into a bucket. And call for a taxi. And after maybe 5 minutes, after he opened the door, the kids left. Like, they had more things to do. It was the NEDs, right? They had more to vandalize that night. Feel bad saying that, but taxi comes, picks us up, takes us to our flat. I go inside the flat, and we're on the 3rd floor of this crappy place. And I go into the bathroom, and I turn on the light, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, my nostrils are like all the way underneath my right eye. My nose was completely shattered. And Dawson looks at me, he's like, nah, dude, your nose is good. I mean, he obviously didn't say dude, but he's Brazilian. But he said, no, your nose looks great. And I was like, I don't think so. And like my white shirt was soaked in blood up to mid bicep because I'd been holding the tissue up to it, right? And the handkerchief. And we go to the Royal Edinburgh Hospital that night. And it was a Friday night in Scotland, so it was busy.
Yeah.
And it was the emergency room. I sat on a little gurney halfway in and halfway out of the doors that just kept continually opening and closing on this like cobblestoney kind of floor. It wasn't smooth, so when they wheeled you, it like jittered you as you bounce up and down. Finally get seen. We probably sat there for 6 hours before I actually got seen. Doctor takes some x-rays, brings back the x-rays, and he says, well, your nose is destroyed. Your nose is broken. There's no cartilage or tissue left. It's just completely broken. And I was like, see, Dawson? And he's like, and your jaw is fractured. And so I was like, really? He's like, yeah, that's why it hurts so bad. And he pointed to my right side. He's like, and that's why it hurts so bad. And this is back when there's like the film x-rays, right? Like you see that used to exist before they're digital.
Yeah.
And so it was completely shattered. So the whole section of jaw was completely free hanging. In all reality, it was broken on my left side in 2 spots, like right here at the corner of my mouth and then alongside of my ear. So the whole section of bottom left jaw was completely dangling and free floating. And so he's like, we're going to send you to Livingston General and they will take care of your surgery. So call for a taxi and go to the hospital tomorrow morning. So we called a taxi and we get home maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, something like that. And Elder Dawson's like, I think I'm going to call President Wilkinson. We're minutes from the mission home. And I didn't think about it either, right? I was like, it's the middle of the night. Who knows what he's doing? He probably should be sleeping, but maybe he's not even in town. Maybe he's visiting another part of the country. I don't know. So this was week 5 of the mission, right?
I was going to say, you're just starting.
Right. So President Wilkinson picks me up in the morning and takes me to Livingston General. And this was a Saturday morning. They checked me into the hospital. And Elder Dawson said, I hopefully will see you again. Because I had to stay at the hospital by myself. They didn't, I couldn't have my companion. So Elder Dawson finished the last couple of days of his mission as the office elder, which, whatever, would have been fine, I'm sure.
And went home to Aberdeen.
Yep. Went home to Aberdeen. And I saw him at a couple of zone conferences here and there when he would come, just randomly show up. And I got put on a ward with 5 other guys with just a little little cloth divider between our beds. Back then, you could smoke in the hospitals, so people were smoking. They could drink.
Unbelievable.
And you know what happens in Scotland after 9:00 at night? The TV just turns to whatever adult film is on.
Oh man!
Maybe you didn't know that, but it is.
Fortunately, I never witnessed that.
Okay, well, that's
but
good.
I'm not surprised. So.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I got to lay in this hospital bed with people coughing, smoking, drinking, and watching adult movies all night.
Oh my goodness.
It was pretty bad. So then in the morning, Sunday morning, some orderlies come to pick me up and they're like, "You ready for your surgery? Or are you ready for the theater? Sorry. You ready for theater?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm not going to theater. What are you talking about?" They're like, "Oh, yeah. You're a Yank. Theater means surgery." I was like, "Oh, no, my surgery is supposed to be on Monday." And he's like, the 2 orderlies were like, No. It's today. So I was like, I need to make a phone call. And this is, they only had 1 phone on the unit and it was at the nurse's station. And so I called my mission president. I was like, "President Wilkinson, they're taking me back for surgery now." He's like, "Okay, let me go. I'll be right there." And so he left church and drove out to Livingston, which thankfully is not that far away from Edinburgh, especially on a Sunday morning. And I was like, "You can't take me back until my friend gets here, because I need to talk to him really quick." And I hadn't had a chance to talk to my parents yet, but President Wilkinson had, to update on what's going on. And then I went back for surgery. They put the plates in my jaw. So I have 2 titanium plates. I have 8 screws. And they put some pliers in my nose during the course of the surgery and just pressed it, like the vice grip pliers that hold it in place, and just pressed it together. And so the cartilage could kind of reform itself in between the pressure of the metal pliers. And I got released from the hospital the next day. So I went and stayed at the mission home for the rest of the week until that transfer was over. So I stayed at the mission home for the 5 days or whatever. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I guess almost a week, because I think transfers were Tuesday or Monday. And I got a new companion. Right, his name was my companion went home. His mom drove down from Aberdeen, picked him up, and they drove back home. So I got a new companion. His name was Elder Rackham. He's from Ohio. I really liked Elder Rackham. He was a good guy.
Was that the only hospital trip you made?
No.
Okay. All right. Carry on.
I was on, I didn't have to have my jaw wired shut because they had the plates put in. This was a relatively new technology to put metal appliances in somebody's mouth to hold it together, or bone in general. And so I'm pretty grateful that I went to a teaching hospital to the Edinburgh School of Medicine was right there. And so they sent over some good surgeons to take care of my plastic surgery in my jaw, which was fantastic. But I remember eating one of those Greg's donuts and the mission home, and one of the office elders there made fun of me because I had to microwave this thing and then mash it down into mashed potato texture and then scrape it into my mouth because I couldn't open my jaw. It was it wasn't wired shut, but it had been broken right at the hinge part, by the ear. And Sister Wilkinson taught me how to make scrambled eggs and all these little fun things that I knew how to do, but it was really cute because she was so attentive and so fun. And I talked in that week between my last week with Dawson and my first week with Rackham, I talked with the area authorities on a couple of occasions. I talked with, what was his name? Elder Zwick once. Talked with President Hinckley once. Talked with my parents every single day. My mom was panicked and freaking out, and she couldn't get a passport to save her life because it was right after September 11th and she didn't have one. And my dad was an ex-Marine from the Vietnam era. So he's like, I could probably get over there to an embassy somehow. I'm sure I could figure out a way. But my mom's like, if you go without me, then you can't go without me, you know. Anyway, so I talked to my parents all the time, and that was fun. Anyways, I got with Rackham. We met some of the people in the ward. Still went to the same area. My mission president said, stay out of Broomhouse. And I said, okay, we will not go to Broomhouse. I didn't want to go there anyways, but
no problem.
Yeah, I ain't going there no matter what, but whatever. So then we go to dinner with some members. It was like four teenage girls. So thinking back, it's like probably wasn't the best dinner invitation. I don't know, whatever. But one of the girls was from America. The other three were Scots. One of them wasn't baptized. So three baptized girls and then one investigator. And we were in this part of the city called Wester Hales. And we finished the appointment. And we walk out of maybe it was Saturday night. Possibly Saturday night. I don't remember exactly. Whatever the 13th was in 2002. I don't remember exactly, but we walk out of the apartment. We start walking towards the bus stop, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh crap!" You know, I'm like getting all paranoid and panicked again, and there's like this group of guys, and the first fight wasn't a fight, right? It was just jump me and then laugh.
Yeah.
And they were younger teenagers. I wouldn't guess any one of them was over 15 years old. And the second one was, so as we're walking around a corner, and all of a sudden there's like 8 older, bigger teenage guys there. Maybe not even teens, maybe in their 20s. I don't know. And they were between us and the bus stop, and it was like kind of that awkward spot where it's like, oh crap, they saw us and we saw them. We can't turn around because then they're going to chase after us. So you just walk right through them and pretend like no big deal. I don't know if you ever had that experience, but
yeah,
you kind of just want to be like, not show weakness. And so we start walking through, and the four teenage girls were there with us. They're tailing behind, and one of the teenagers, one of the guys, starts swearing at us, and I was like, "Watch your mouth! Like, don't swear! Don't talk like that in front of the girls." And pissed him off. So he's like, "What? What are you trying to tell me what to do?" Like, I mean, between like slurring and their accent and the drunkenness that was obviously going on, I didn't make out many words besides swear words. And so he grabs me by my right shoulder and flips me around and punches me in the face. And my companion was gone. He was gone. He had ran to the bus stop. And I appreciate that he took care of himself. He did what he needed to do, and he got I feel bad because people kind of treated him poorly after that because he took off running. But it's like that situation with like fight or flight. You don't know what you're going to do until you're right in the middle of it. And I don't blame him. I think it's awesome that he took care of what he needed to do. And he was at the bus stop, and I decided I was done. I'm not going to get beat up twice in a row. So I went into I got into a good fight. It was really nice. I was so angry from the first fight and not doing a single thing back. I was so mad. I was like, I'm a missionary and I got my jaw broken. Like, I don't understand this. And I got my nose broken and I had to throw away a shirt. I had to throw away a suit. It couldn't, all this stuff. Like, I was just so mad, right? So I punched back, and then the rest of his gang jumped on me and started kicking and punching, and I just kept punching back. And then eventually another group of about 6 or 8 more people come in, and they have me pinned up against a concrete wall. It was not straight. It was like a arched backwards kind of a wall. So I remember they had like one guy stationed on each arm and one guy stationed on each leg, and they were taking these running kicks and punches into my body and face. And I just remember sitting there. It was like the most interesting out of body almost experience, because I remember thinking like, whoa, dude, that guy's got Doc Martens. I've got Doc Martens. Like, oh, that guy can't tie his shoes. Look at him. He just tucked him in, and it was like interesting to like observe this as a third hand, like as I'm getting kicked and beat in the face and spit on. And they didn't pee on me, but they may as well have, they were pouring their iron brew on me, which is basically pee. But, I just remember the older guy, because I kept fighting back, and so they had to eventually, they just held me in place. And one of the gang leader guy was like, "Grab your knives, let's finish him right now." And at that point, like, one of the girls, her name is Stephanie, she reaches in, she grabs my arm, and she pulls me out amongst 12 guys, bigger guys. And I don't know how. I mean, divine intervention for sure.
Miracle.
Yeah. And I have my arms. My companion came back at this point. So I had one arm wrapped around his shoulder, one arm wrapped around her shoulder. And the other 3 girls were just like telling them to leave us alone, walking with us to the bus stop. And I got hit in the back of the hand, my left hand, with this rock that would have hit that girl in the back of the head had I not had my hand there. So I was like super grateful that it hit me and not her. And they, instead of getting on the bus, because we missed the bus, of course, the girls called for a taxi, and they took us in one of those big black taxis to a different hospital in Edinburgh. I don't remember which one this one was. I got admitted right away. I spent 7 days in the hospital with massive internal bleeding and needed blood transfusions daily and platelets and everything. I just could not stop bleeding internally. So I remember having every single kind of like doctor and whatever specialist coming in from the school of medicine came in, and just they transferred me to the main hospital so that all the docs could be there, all the specialists, and that was pretty wild. And then one day it stopped bleeding, and so they were like, "All right, you haven't bled in 12 hours, so go home." So it was nice. I went back to the mission home, and President Wilkinson did a little emergency transfer and sent me up to the Highlands. So I went up to this little town called Alness, just a little bit north of Inverness. And my companion was Elder Whitfield, who's from England. And that was a no buses area. There was a bus, but it was like a twice daily bus. And it went in between cities as opposed to in between areas. And so the Highlands, as you know, I don't know if you served up there, but it's quite spread out.
Yeah.
Our branch president lived in this little hamlet called Olapool, which was way out west. It was like a 3-hour drive for him to get to the branch, which met above a bar, community center, I guess, but they served liquor there. And we went so I was up in the Highlands for about 6.5 months. At the time, it was like a mid transfer, by the time I got up there, and it was quite nice. The Highlands were fun. Got to see Loch Ness quite a bit, because we'd go to Inverness for the state conference or anything, not state conference, for zone conferences. Mm-hmm. And then from Inverness, or from Alness, I went down to to Stirling, right in the heart of the country, and I loved Stirling. That was by far my favorite area. I served with Elder Baines first. He was also from England. I don't remember who I served with after Whitfield, so I feel bad because I forgot. Elder Brown, I think. I don't know. Had to be a driver though because I didn't have a license and we had a car. But we went down to Stirling, and Stirling was fun because it was we had sister missionaries in the ward with us, and so Elder Baines fell in love with one of the sister missionaries, and the two of them got married shortly after he got home. She left, I think, early to marry him. I think, anyways, it doesn't matter. But it was a little bit awkward because when we do district meetings, it was just like a date for the two of them. And then me and Sister Oyala, who I really liked, she was from Finland. I still chat with her every now and then. And anyways, we were in Stirling. Was fun. We had a really good stake there. We had a really good ward. The stake president, I should say, was in the ward, and his family are fantastic. He's a member of parliament now. One of his boys served in Russia, another one in Norway. I don't remember where the youngest served. Anyways, it was just fun. We got to see everything. Like Braveheart came out before my mission, so I got to see that. And so we got to go up to like the Stirling Monument and see William Wallace's sword. Our flat was just below Stirling Castle. So I served with Elder Baines. He was my last time I had a senior companion. And then after Baines, I got Elder Gilmore. And that dude is awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody should be so lucky to serve with Elder Gilmore. He was my first junior companion, but it was not necessarily a junior senior companion. That dude was just so he knew everything. He was just so good. And we had a fun March of 2003 on St. Patrick's. Well, somebody got attacked in our flat one morning in March, and had their head smashed up against a wall. And
but not you.
Not me. No. Pools of blood dripping up the spiral staircase that just congealed there for a while. And then St. Patrick's Day, some guys got drunk and decided to try a bunch of flats to see which one the doors didn't lock. Ours didn't. So they threw in a wheelie bin and set it on fire. And Elder Gilmore and I had to jump out the back window of
oh my goodness,
the second and third floor. And
he didn't tell us that story on his episode.
It was pretty wild. It's almost 20 years now to the day. Caught the couple that lived across from us or below us was a little Indonesian couple that were at university there. And so he jumped out. Sorry, he had his wife jump out and we caught her. And then he threw out all their legal documents, their passports and whatever else. And then he jumped out. And then,
oh my goodness,
it was pretty wild, but it cleaned up the blood. So that was good. And after that, I got a new companion. I had Gilmore for a couple of months, maybe three months, and then I got a new companion named Elder Gallagher from Las Vegas, and he was a very homesick missionary, and I tried my hardest. He ran away one time and hid up at Stirling Castle for quite a while, and then just went home from his mission a little bit early. He finished a transfer and then went home. And then I got sent down to the borders to Dumfries. And I like Dumfries a lot. It was a really fun little area. I became a trainer there. I had somebody, I can't remember very well. I became a trainer down there for a guy named Elder Nelson from Eastern Washington.
Kevin Nelson?
David.
No, David.
Kevin was out with me, though. I did know Kevin. David Nelson, he was a farmer from Eastern Washington, and the other guy in the zone or in the district. So we had Dumfries, and then we had Allness down there, and sorry, not Allness. I can't remember what it's called. Annan. And about halfway through, the first transfer with my greenie, the other senior companion down in Annan, he also had a greenie. We both got greenies at the same time. And that senior companion got sent somewhere else about halfway through, like as an emergency transfer. Somebody went home or something happened. I don't recall exactly. So they just combined the two areas. So I had Dumfries and I had Annan, and I had two greenies. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so fun.
That's a great ward for that to happen in, though. That was my greenie area.
Oh, was it?
That's where I started.
Oh.
Just after you went home. Like I came
really?
I came in just after you went home. So
I love Dumfries and Annan. That was such a fun little area. So pretty. It was the summertime, so it was actually kind of warm. So I had Elder Nelson, and then Elder Cook, Charlie Cook from Manchester, England.
So I replaced Charlie Cook down there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So that's how close we were.
We barely missed each other then.
Almost cross paths. Yep.
Oh, it was so fun down there, right? It's just pretty. The ward was fun.
Yeah.
I don't know that I actually did any actual missionary work. I mean, as far as teaching anybody, but it was still fun. I honestly think I baptized one person in the entirety of my mission. And it combined baptism because she needed extra help in the water. So the first person I legitimately baptized by myself was my son when he turned 8. And so that was pretty fun. And after Dumfries, I got sent up to Livingston and was a zone leader up there until I finished. And one of my companions up there, his name was James Perry. And he was, I think, just one transfer later in the mission than I was. And he was from England as well. I would say over half of my companions were from England. And that was kind of fun to get to the cultural experience of a non-American. And I really liked James. He was a good missionary. He came and lived with me after he got home from his mission for about 6 months or so. After my brother went on his mission, we had a basement to ourselves. It was kind of like being companions again. We shared a room, and it was pretty fun. He went to massage therapy school. I went to UVU, and anyways, it was
that's cool.
Scotland was fun. It was really pretty. It was really violent. It's what you think of, right? You think of Scotland as like this rough, hardy people, and that's what it was. The whole mission experience was that way.
Yeah, that's why I started out. I said, "You're famous. I'd heard of you." That's why.
Why.
Yeah, you were well known for having gotten beat up.
I know. It was yeah. It's left a permanent mark in my life. I don't eat ice cream because my jaw freezes. I don't drink Slurpees because my jaw freezes. Like, I always wear a beard because otherwise my jaw would freeze in the wintertime when I go snowboarding. So
you got a nice beard though. It grows.
It does. It does. I just lost a bet about 1.5 years ago, so I cut off like 26 inches of hair. So that was pretty sad, but whatever. It had to go at some point.
26 inches, that's incredible.
I know, it was a lot. I was fortunate enough to have received a settlement from the Scottish government as a result of my fights, because one of the members in the mission presidency was an ex-police officer from Paisley. And so he knew some of the ins and outs of the Scottish law pretty well. So he got me a a settlement from the government of about £3,500. So at the time, it was about $7,000.
Yeah.
So I flew my parents out. I told my mom to get a passport, my dad to get a passport, and I flew them out to Scotland, and we spent about 10 days touring the country, and
Nice.
that was pretty fun. I had to go do a police lineup with the guys from the second fight. So I took the train down from Alness up in the Highlands down to Edinburgh, and that was, and I went to the police station. They had, I identified the assailants that I could remember. The police said, "Okay, thank you for your time." They didn't arrest them. They didn't do anything with them. They said there's not enough evidence. The kids burned down a primary school the next week, right? They burned down an entire elementary school, and I was like, I told you. Whatever. It's okay. Eventually they're going to get caught.
Yeah. I went to court with one of my companions who was, I think his second week in the mission, got jumped in a stairwell.
Oh my gosh.
And he pointed out the guy in the courtroom. His companion said, "I can't identify him." So the guy walked, and then we went back to work in the same area. I was like, oh man.
Oh my gosh. Where was that?
Cumbernauld.
Which companion?
Schmidt was his name.
Schmidt.
Yep.
Yeah, I never went anywhere in the Glasgow Triangle. I think President
Sounds like
Wilkinson,
you got the experience anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if President Wilkinson passed anything on to President Vriens and was like, keep this dude out of Glasgow, or if it was just divine inspiration that kept me out of Glasgow. But I went there twice, just as helping the mission president with some stuff, bringing some stuff over. I'd love to go back and go to a Celtic game, but never mind. I have to get to Scotland first.
Oh man. So on that topic, any memories you have particular President Wilkinson or President Vriens?
Oh man, President Wilkinson and Sister Wilkinson were the kindest people. I mean, I think you have to be kind to be a mission president. I think you have to be like willing to give everything to the people, to your missionaries, and to the country or the city or wherever you're serving. They were just so unbelievably generous. And like President Wilkinson to come and sit with me in the hospital while I'm getting surgery and skip church that always stood out to me, because I was like, he's the mission president. Everybody's looking for him there. Like he's the one guy that would be missed if he wasn't at church.
Yeah.
Especially if Sister Wilkinson is there. You know, and with the mission home being so close to the chapel, like short of being like really sick, right? The mission president's always at church in some ward, whether it's the Edinburgh ward or wherever he happens to be. So I just remember being like very impressed that he felt like it was more important to be with me, even though I was unconscious and in theater, right?
Yeah.
But to be there waiting for me when I came out was really cool. And that he like dropped all of his morning meetings, Sunday morning meetings, to be there, like walked out of them in the middle of the meeting. So that always stood out to me. Sister Wilkinson would do anything to take care of her missionaries, from like teaching me how to cook to helping me scrub the blood out of my shirt, try to at least. I spent like I said, a week in the mission home with them, in the office elders. And I remember so after the second fight, and I was kind of recovering in the mission home before I got transferred up to the Highlands, one of the APs made a comment to the effect of, "You shouldn't have fought back. That's not what we do." And I remember President Wilkinson told this elder to politely stop talking. He said, you don't get to judge what Elder Wright chose to do. That's not your place. Your place is to support him and the other missionaries. And if you feel like you can continue to do that as an AP, then great. But if you need to step back because you're letting your bias and your judgment come in, then we can find another place for you to. And that's only stood out to me. Yeah.
Had your back.
Yeah. I didn't spend as much time with them after that my first 2 transfers in Edinburgh, because I was in I was up in the Highlands for 6.5 months, and then I was down in Stirling for another 7 months. And Stirling and Edinburgh were close enough, but it's still in the same stake, so I'd still see them. But they were they stood out to me just for their kindness. And then President and Sister Vriens were just so welcoming and so loving. It was kind of cool to be there for like a transition of a mission president from one to the other, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who this new person is going to be. Are they going to be as kind and as nice and as friendly and as all the things as President and Sister Wilkinson? And President and Sister Vriens were just so humble, right? They came right in and were like, they wanted to get to meet every single elder and sister in the mission, from senior couples to proselyting missionaries. Like, they sat down with everybody and were like, did a little interview with every single person just to get to know who we were. And President Vriens right away was like, I heard about you. I was like, thanks. And so he was like, are you okay? What do you need? Like, what kind of accommodations do you need? I was like, none. Dude, put me wherever you want. I'm happy to serve anywhere. I'll be kind of anxious in Glasgow, but I'll be happy to go anywhere you want me to go. And just he and Sister Vriens were just like, Sister Vriens has this smile. Like, I don't know how it covers her that much of her face, but it does. It's just this like gigantic smile that covers so much of her face, and like you can't help but laugh and smile when you're in her presence. And President Vriens had like a very strong, firm handshake that made you know that like he is here for you. Like, he's not messing around. Like, he's here to serve, and he's here to be with you. And I remember after I transferred to the University of Utah, and President and Sister Vriens went home. They finished their 3 years. I would take the tracks up 4 South in Salt Lake City, and sometimes I'd get to school really early, and I'd get off the tracks at the 7th East Station, and I would walk over to his business, to Modern Display, that he and his family owned, and go up to his little office. And sometimes he'd be there, and sometimes he wouldn't be there, but it was just cool to have my mission president so close to where, and I think he still is. I just haven't made much of an effort recently to go to reach out, but
that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to recommend you watch. We've got an episode with the Vrienses.
Good. I saw that.
We're going to get the Wilkinsons on sometime. And good. Gilmore's episode number 49. So you watch that one too.
I absolutely will. I love that dude.
Awesome.
I love Scotland. It took me a while, I will say, to get past the trauma of the fights. In all reality, like, it wasn't smooth for me to knock on doors. So I think it was very much a divine intervention for me to go to the Highlands, where, yeah, we could knock on doors. We're going to be knocking on the same 300 doors every other week, same 1,000 doors every other week, right? We don't have very many doors to knock. And so it took me a while to like be okay with walking into a gate or into somebody's garden and hearing the gate close, and getting on a bus and doing all the little things. And then, going down to Stirling, where it was dark and it was rainy and it was cold, and it was like all the same temperature feelings that happened from the Edinburgh fights was really hard. So it was cool to have like so many loving people in Scotland that are there to like pick you up and support you.
Yeah.
I would go there. I'd go back to Scotland any day. It'd be so fun.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for coming on, sharing your
Yeah.
experiences.
Of course.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks for being patient with me. I know it took me a minute to finally respond and get back with you, so thank you.
No, you bet. And we love you as our brother in Scotland. I mean, there's this camaraderie as we've done this, reached out to people, whether we served in Scotland at the same time or not. We have that connection,
Yeah.
that link. Like, we've walked down those cold, dark streets, and it's a unique experience for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's fun to like hear of people serving in Scotland later. Like someone in my best friend's ward got called to the Scotland-Ireland mission, and I think things are a lot different now because this guy got a visa only for Ireland, so he couldn't ever go back to Scotland.
Oh, interesting.
But and I don't know if that is common practice or Ireland's visa just came through quicker than Scotland's. I'm not entirely sure, but it's just so fun to find somebody that serves there and be like, share stories.
Yeah.
Someone in my old elders quorum presidency was a missionary in Scotland in the 70s, and so we got to like chat about what's changed. And
because some of it doesn't change, right? The history there is too long to change much. So
right. And to find somebody that likes Indian food. I didn't even know Indian food existed before I went to Scotland. And then finding other, former missionaries who were like, oh yeah, check this Indian place out in Salt Lake or this place. And it's pretty fun.
Nice. That's great.
Fantastic. And I do think that the reason I love mental health work is because of those fights. Because I immediately flocked to like working with teenagers. And those were the people that like were the ones that hurt me the most.
Yeah.
And
now you're making a difference.
Yeah. I just wanted, exactly. I just want to help them. I know Scotland and Salt Lake City are vastly different in many aspects, but if you can help like one person have a better day or a better life, then that feels worth it.
Yeah, that's really good. Fantastic, man.
Thank you.
Well, we need your help though, getting guys your age to come on. Not as connected on social media, not as likely to come on to a podcast, but we've had a few on, and they've been great. Well, we need more.
So Elder Cooley.
Yep.
He and I were in the same MTC group, I believe.
Okay.
So I'll look at who I still talk with. I know I talk with Sister Oyala, who's from Finland.
Yep. Just send them our way. Okay. 51spylaw.com. They can fill out a form there, or just email us directly at S.E.M podcast at 51spylaw.com. But
I will look for them.
We're kind of targeting the decade that we were in, right? From 2000, 2010. 2010 is about the time it switched to Scotland, Ireland. So that's kind of where we're covering. And I was earlier, Zach's a little bit later. I trained him.
Oh, you did?
So
that's awesome.
That's how that works. But
and you both live in Denver area?
Yep. So I live north of Denver. He lives south, but we're both here in Colorado.
Oh, cool. I was just there for a concert at the Mission downtown. That was fun.
Cool. Yeah. So really appreciate it, though. Thanks for taking the time this evening.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. If there's anything we can do for you, feel free to reach out.
Okay, likewise. And I'll try and send some people your way.
All right. Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Seth.
you. Yep.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.